Hi everyone, Corey here with Team Cramer Fishing. Today's video is going to be about routing and planning your family road trip. We've taken quite a few family road trips and we get asked lots of questions about them. Generally, people are kind of, amazed or they think we're crazy. But we have a lot of fun on them, and that's what this whole series is about. This section's about how I route and plan our trips, and um, I I uploaded one video. I was going to break this into several parts, but I decided to just combine them together. So if you watch that first one, you can just skip 10 minutes in or so and pick up the rest of it. So this is how I route and plan pretty much all of our trips, and this is probably the trickiest part of everything. Figuring out where the overnight towns are, figuring out what you want to see, figuring out how much it's going to cost. Um, Generally, when we travel, we're looking at, if we're staying in hotels, we're usually looking at about a couple $100s a day if you include gas, food, lodging, and what it costs to get into all the places that we want to get in and see. So that's kind of I found $200 a day is a happy kind of, it's around the price where you get the most value for your money. If you go too much lower than that, you could easily do this trip for 150, maybe even 100 if you were really tight on money. But 200 is kind of that range where you're getting a lot for your money, but you're still really comfortable. You know, your hotel is going to be clean and it's going to probably have an indoor pool and pretty reliable service, and you're not going to have to always constantly be pinching every penny if you want to go to an attraction that costs a little bit more money. So you can ratchet that up or down a little bit, but I've found that that's kind of the sweet spot where you're just getting an amazing experience, for a really good price. So that's kind of how I plan all of my long trips, and have recently been ending up right in that range. So here we go. These are the websites I go to and the process that I go through to plan our trips. We have a big California fishing trip coming up in 7 weeks from today. We leave, so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to show you just a quick glimpse of some of the work that I've done on that too at the end. So here you go. Hope you enjoy. Hope you learn something. Have any questions? Leave them in the comments. Let me know what you think. I can make more videos, answer questions in the comments. There you
Okay, everyone. I went out ice fishing today. It was about -1 or 2 wind with the wind chill. Didn't catch anything, but I was freezing. So I thought I would come and start the series that I promised, or continue the series that I promised about planning a family road trip. Right now, I thought about this a little while, and I thought that the best way to do this would just be to take you through it without setting up too many things in advance, just because there's a lot that goes into it and I don't always remember everything when I try to kind of outline everything in advance. But as I'm doing it, I'll definitely remember most of the things that I need to think about. I'm going to do this in 10-minute segments, and we'll just see how many parts it takes to sort of build our road trip. This road trip is going to be 6 days, and the budget is it's going to be a hotel road trip instead of a camping one. I might do a camping one later. Um, and the budget for this is going to be about $200 a day, so about $1,200 is what we're aiming at. And this is a road trip, so we're not just going one place and staying there. It costs a little bit more money to drive around, so I think it's going to end up being about 16 or 1700 miles when we get done. Okay, so the first thing is kind of deciding what you want your road trip to be all about. And we've thought about this, and I thought, okay, we're trying to visit all these national parks, and there's a couple of them in South Dakota, Wind Cave, which is right in here, and the Badlands, which are right in here. And so this is going to start off with a trip to go visit those two national parks. So usually when I start doing that, I go into Google Maps. We live in Ames, Iowa, and so I'll start in Ames, Iowa, and then click direction if you're not used to Google Maps. I do this all the time, so I'm pretty fast at it. And then I put Ames in twice because we're going to come back home. All right. And then we can Usually we can add another one here. And let's just do it as we go. Okay. It's not adding the second one. Let's so we want to go to Wind Cave National Park. So I just type in Wind Cave National, and usually by the time you get there, and the visitor center is usually the best place to do on Google. So that'll take us to Wind Cave, and then we want to go to the Badlands. Here we go. And then we want to come back home. Okay, so there's our quick basic trip. Now, one of the other things I like to do when I'm traveling is I like to visit new places that I haven't been to before, and I've never been to Western Nebraska, so I do a little research, and I find out that there is this thing called the Fossil Freeway, and they even have their own little website. So I go here, and the Fossil Freeway runs essentially from Interstate 80 up to Interstate 90, right through the area that we're planning on traveling, and it looks really cool. There's several different places: Mammoth, Toadstool, Agate, Scottsbluff, Wildcat Hills, and so I start poking around, and they have a map page here, and I look, and let's have it pull up here. So, and they plot out all these things like on this pretty straight road, kind of heading right in the same direction that we want to go. So now I'm thinking, okay, we're putting this trip together. We want to have some themes going on here. We have the national park theme, and now we have this fossil theme. So I'm going to put those two together and try to I always try to merge and layer like sometimes 3 or 4, 5 different kind of ideas together on these trips. So we have that trip. So let's zoom in here on Google real quick. We know that Scottsbluff was one of the areas. You can see usually there's like green here. Maybe I'll even just go in. And I bet this is probably the Wildcat area. So let's add this in. I usually just go in here. Scottsbluff National Monument. So after you get it in, you can just slide it up into the order that you want to go. So I'm going to end up going this direction. So we're going to go there first. So now we're starting to form a nice little loop here. And this is already looking almost like the Fossil Freeway road trip here. So the next thing that I'm going to do is there's usually some like iconic places that you want to visit too. So, and we know that Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse are up here as well. So let's try Crazy Horse. I don't know if it's a national monument or memorial. Crazy Horse Visitor Center, maybe. Let me try South Dakota. Let me zoom in. Sometimes if it doesn't show up on the search, the best way to do it is to zoom in. I know it's right in here somewhere. I think it's near Custer. So we have our Wind Cave. Where are you? Well, we'll do Rushmore. I know they're right close together, so do Mount Rushmore. I don't know what Google has against and then we'll put this in order too. So we'll go to this somewhere in here. Okay, there we go. So finally pulled that one up. And so we knew Crazy Horse is right next to it. So we're kind of getting our trip laid out here. So we have kind of an iconic couple iconic places, a couple national parks, a kind of fossil theme going on. Um, so then the other thing that I like to do, if I can, is this stretch from Ames. You can go down here and see the details, and it will give you the times, the driving times, and they're relatively accurate. So this is a 9-hour drive from Ames to Scottsbluff if you take the interstate and you drive like 80 miles an hour. So we're probably going to want to break this up a little bit and make it a little more interesting because Nebraska built an arch that goes over the interstate here, and it's pretty interesting. But I've never, I want to explore this kind of upper area of Nebraska because we drive across Nebraska all the time whenever we're trying to go west. So, but usually we don't take the time if we're on a big trip to kind of explore up here. So after you do a little research, let's just zoom and say, hey, we're gonna just take this road. So one of the things you can do is say, all right, instead of taking this route, we're going to take, yeah, I like that one actually a little better. Maybe that one. And we can change it later. But so this just looks more interesting to me. And we can check this route here too. Okay, so now I want to think about where we can actually stay. So usually we leave about either after the kids get out of school or after Heather gets off work. So you're either leaving about 4 or 6 o'clock at night, 4 to 5:30. So generally that means a 4 to 6 hour trip on that very night. So you can get some miles behind us. And that looks like Sioux City to me. Okay. So what I want to do is go and try to figure out which of these places would be decent places to look for hotels for overnights for our trip. And one of the ways I like to do that is okay, it looks like my 10 minutes is almost up. But one of the ways I like to do that is to go to Hampton Inn's website since I get discounted rooms at Hampton's and there's a lot of them. So I go to their website and you can click on each individual state. So I click on Iowa and it will take me there. And then in the next video, I will show you how to do and how to select your hotel. All right, folks, we're just going to pick up where we left off here on the Family Road Trip Tips Hotel Edition here. We're doing a 6-night trip from Iowa over to South Dakota. I've taken off the landmarks, and I've just left on the potential overnight towns for our hotels. So we have Sioux City, Scottsbluff, Hot Springs, Rapid City, Deadwood, and Mitchell, South Dakota on the way home. So if you recall, we're leaving on like a Thursday, we'll say a Thursday night in May, and we're going to spend the first night in Sioux City. So we're going to get off work, drive a 4-hour drive to Sioux City and stay there from say 9, get there at 9 or 10 at night. I'm assuming I'm a rewards member at Hilton properties, but it could be anywhere. So if you are, start with them first, and Hampton Inn has a good little interactive map here that you can go to find out what cities the hotels are in. So one of the way I chose those towns was to at least first look and see if there were convenient ones that would match up to whatever my favorite loyalty program is. So I look, and do they have one in Iowa and Sioux City? Oh, they do. Okay, so that's great. So after that, what I want to do is go to their website, Hilton.com, and then I'm going to assume we're going to go in the fringe season. And if you do this, we're going to pretend like we're going the week before Memorial Day weekend. So that means that it will be very easy to find hotels. So if you didn't want to make a reservation, you could just drive and show up, and do some of the negotiating tactics that I talked about before. So this will be Memorial Day weekend, the 26th and the 27th. Let's say we leave on Thursday, the 18th. Okay. So one night, and learn how to spell Sioux City, we'll be in good shape here. There we go. And we'll see what the rate is. We're looking at it for our budget on this trip of $200 per day. We don't want to average more than $100 a night for our hotel for the whole trip. So you can have some that are a little bit more. You can have some that are a little bit less. Okay, this is great. So this one shows up. It's $90 with your Hilton Honors discount. So perfect, really. So we can do that. That's a pretty good deal right in our budget. So what you can do is if you're still in the same website, you can just go back. We'll try Scotts Bluff. We'll make sure something's there. Now, you don't want to book these as you go along. You want to just make sure they're available, because as you start scheduling the rest of the stops on your trip, you might find out that the logistics just don't work for one of them. So you don't want to reserve these until you know for sure kind of everything is going to work out logistically. Let's see if I can search for it here. We need to change the dates on that, but get the spelling right first. Okay, let me change the dates to the right dates. Looks like roughly we're looking at $100. Sometimes the weekends can be more or less depending on where you're going. So let me make sure as you're going along, let's change this to, it's going to make me use the calendar here. Check it out on Saturday. Okay. So we're just testing here. We're making sure nothing's too expensive. We're making sure those rooms are available. You'll notice if it's a busy weekend or something that every hotel you check will be a little more expensive. So again, we're under $100. We're right on track. Now, something to note is one of the towns that we wanted to stop at was Hot Springs, South Dakota. It just worked out logistically with some of the other stuff that we're going to do. I know that because I already did some of that work that I'll show you in another video here. So what we're going to do is go to South Dakota here. Computer over here. And we're going to see what our options are, from our primary hotel chain. Okay, we see Hot Springs doesn't have a Hampton Inn, and if you go and look a little further, it doesn't have any Hilton properties there. So we're going to have to look someplace else to find a hotel here. So usually what I do, if that's the case, and we really do end up want to stopping here, the other towns just don't quite work logistically for us. So that's okay. I mean, we don't have to be that loyal to our place. So what I do is I go to TripPadvisor.com. I enter in, what I want to find, hotel, place, South Dakota, Hot Springs, South Dakota. And then, as I talked about in my hotel tips, we want breakfast included. We want a pool for the kids. We want free parking, preferably free Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's going to narrow it down basically to the ones that we want. And then they rank them, which is kind of nice. There's only 9 choices, so we don't have a lot of choices. Now, when I went and checked, the Hills Inn looked really good, but they required a deposit. So as I talked about in my last video, you want to avoid that. So it looks like we're going at the Baymont here. They have everything that we wanted. They had some pretty good reviews, and we can see what their availability is right here. You don't have to book it through here, but you can get an idea of what you're doing. So let's see. This is a Sunday night, I think. Let's see, we left on Thursday, Friday. No, this is Saturday night, May 20th. Checking out on the 21st. And we should be able to get a feeling for how much it costs. Remember, we're trying to stay roughly around $100, maybe a little less since. All right, so they're giving us, $80-ish is what we're So right in our budget, and we'll do more digging later and use some of the ideas that I talked about before. I would probably almost always call the hotel directly and talk to them if you're getting outside of the chain or whatever that you're not used to. But this looks great. I can see the indoor pool right there, and has breakfast, so that's great. So I mean, we're looking pretty good here. Now it gets a little trickier when we get, at least the last time I went through this, when we get to Sunday, we want to stay in. So Sunday the 21st. To the 23rd. Well, let's just do 22nd. And we want to stay in Rapid City, South Dakota. So, see what they have. So we're all good. We only have we have 3 nights down, 3 nights left. All logistics are looking pretty good so far. It doesn't always work out that way. So here's the problem we're going to run into. So these guys are sold out for that date, and our prices have gone up. So the same Hampton Inn is $150, which is pretty close to being out of our budget. But if we scroll down here, we see that in Deadwood, it's only $69, and it's $69 for both of these nights. I checked earlier. So this is where we can be really flexible. I mean, we can pay half the amount. So instead of staying in Rapid City and Deadwood, we can just, I mean, this is a 40-minute drive on the interstate from one to the other. So if there's anything you want to do in Rapid City, you can just stay 2 nights in Deadwood. And so that's what I would do on this trip. And I would just get rid of this night, right? We can still go there. We can still do everything we wanted to do, but we don't have to pay the extra money that they want. So what we're going to do is just spend 2 nights in Deadwood at $69. And we're way under budget. And the Hampton Inn in Mitchell runs about the same. So, so with that, we know we have everything that we wanted, and we got all of our hotels booked for each 6 nights. It, after taxes, well under $100, I'm going to say. That probably average about $90. All right, and then on to the next video after this, and we'll talk about picking.
All right, everyone. So after we have our hotels locations sort of picked out, even though we haven't booked the rooms yet, the next place I go to is a website called roadtrippers.com. You can see it up at the top there. It's a great website for routing and planning your trip. So we're going to start with our starting town, Ames, Iowa. And we're going to put our first destination in here, which is first potential overnight town, which is Sioux City. Okay, and click go. And so this website does a lot of things. It has a lot of features. Some of them are better than others. So we've already done kind of the hotel work, so we'll click this. This works a lot like Google Maps, but you can go up here and click accommodation, attractions and culture, food, outdoors and recreation, and points of interest. And on your route, it will start telling you all the different places that you could potentially see. So I typically use outdoors and recreation and points of interest the most, just because those things are a little bit more difficult to find on other websites. Now, if we wanted to use like the accommodation, we could click this, and it will bring up all your different accommodations. We could go to actually, it came right up. Actually, that's Hilton Garden Inn. We're going to try the Hampton Inn. So we'll zoom into Sioux City here, our first overnight. Sometimes they have the hotel that I'm staying at, and sometimes they don't. I usually check and see just because I can then enter it in here. So let's see if I think Hampton Inn is what we were looking at. There it is. So if you find it, you can click it. And they'll have a rating on different things. So this one is 4. It depends on how many reviews. They have 23 votes for it. So once you pull it up, you can go down here and click this button, Add to Trip. And it will add it onto your map. So when you go back, it'll add that waypoint in right here. If we back up, you can see that. Okay, so next we'll add, don't need this anymore. We'll add our next overnight town, which is Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And it will do its routing just like Google Maps does. Every now and then it gets a little wonky. It thinks we're going this direction. So instead of having Scottsbluff be our first stop, we'll swap it here. And it should change the map around for us. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to get into the really cool functions of road trippers here. You can also enter your car information, and it'll give you gas mileage and how much you can expect to spend for gas on your trip, which is kind of nice. Okay, so what I want to see is what is there along this route that I have actually driven along this route before, but I'm going to pretend like I haven't. What is there along this route that we might stop at in between Sioux City and Scottsbluff? Because it's like 9 hours or something, so it's a long day. So if we figure 12 hours total on the road, that gives us 3 hours worth of stops. That's generally how I think about it, just as a rough guide. So one of the really cool places along this route that I just happened to find when I was driving along without the help of road trippers is Ashfall Historic Park, and it's really neat. I actually drove by the sign, stopped on the highway, turned around, drove back, and then drove 3 miles just to see what it was because I was curious, and it turned out to be super duper cool. There are basically a big volcano erupted and shot out all this ash over in Wyoming, like where Yellowstone's at, and it fell on this watering hole like, I don't know how many million years ago, 3 million years or something, and all the animals that were drinking at that watering hole were frozen in like Han Solo, in carbonite basically. And you can walk in and look down, and a lot of them are still half in the ground. And it doesn't cost very much. I'm going to add it to my trip. Now, since this is the first stop of our day and it's a long day, I want to see, it says their hours aren't available here. Let's go to their website. And we're going to be traveling the weekend before Memorial Day weekend in May. And I want to know, on most of these sites, there's a plan your visit tab, just like this one. So here we are. We're right in this range. We'll be there on a Friday, so they open at 10. So that's important to know because, and you can kind of see them digging down here. There's like this bridge thing that you can stand on and see all these. There's like rhinoceros and things. I didn't even know there were rhinoceros in Nebraska. But anyway, so 10 o'clock. So keep that in mind. Go back here to your routing page. Okay, we've added our thing. So what we want to know is how long is it going to take to get from Sioux City to our first stop and have them be open, because we don't want to get there too early. So it's going to take 2 hours. So, okay, that's great. So we want to leave about like 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little sooner. So that means we'll get up at 7, eat breakfast. We're not going to have unloaded a bunch of stuff because we know we're just staying the night and we're on the road again. So we know that this day we're going to leave about 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to get here about right when they open. And I'm guessing, probably stay about 45 minutes, maybe an hour at the most. So then we can just go along here and see what else there is. That's just a marker. They have a store. I also click outdoors and recreation, and it brings up a lot of cool stuff too. So boom, 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 we got a bunch more stuff. So You look along here, and you can just look through all of these, and you can click on them, and it pulls them up. You can read reviews. You can see how popular. So if you want to see what's the most popular things, they will rank them sometimes for you here. So, and if you zoom in, it pulls in more. So Valentine looks pretty popular. Let's see if I can drag this down. There we go. So I think there was a waterfall around here that I wanted to check out that we visited when we were there. Probably right here. Maybe it's a point of interest. So you can look along and just see anything that looks interesting to you. And so on this day, so we have 1 hour, so that leaves us like a couple other stops. You know, I might pick one here. This one looks kind of cool. It has 5.0. That's the highest rating on the rating system. So we'll throw that one in there. And then I know one of the really cool ones that we went to is down here in Alliance. And you can widen this scan out, but it goes 30 miles in each direction. Carhenge is really cool. It's a bunch of old cars that they put out as a replica of Stonehenge. It's pretty neat. So on this day we'll have 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe four stops. So let's say 45 minutes. A lunch for an hour at one of these, somewhere in here. Another 45 minutes here. And then I think down here is like Chimney Rock. You might be able to add that. So, and then what we're going to do is do this for every day. So from here, the next day we'll do the same thing. And you just have to kind of take into account how much time you have in each day and how much time you're going to spend at each stop and plan accordingly. Okay. And next I'll show you a map that has all the stuff that I put in for this entire trip. So. Okay, so now I've gone in, and I do this over the course of, several weeks, usually, just a little bit at a time, whenever I feel like it. And I've added all the stops that I plan to make. These are all like the scenic stops and the overnight towns that I plan to make. So first night, we're in Sioux City. Next day, we have one Smith Falls, so you get a waterfall. So you have like an indoor thing if it's raining. You have a waterfall. This would be like a great lunch stop. I would probably cook us lunch out of the car, warm up some food. We'd hike and see the waterfall. The kids could go out and run around. And then this might be just a quick stop, or we might not stop. We might just drive. Sometimes we just drive and look at stuff. Maybe let the kids get out and play on a playground or something for a little while. And then Carhenge is kind of just a funky, weird oddity type of stop, which is good to have. So we're getting a really great mix, even though we're kind of in the middle of nowhere here. We have our fossil theme going. We have our oddities, which we always love to stop at. We have this kind of nature stuff with a waterfall, and then the Chimney Rock, which has an Oregon Trail and an iconic kind of stop. You can stop along the way, and they have a little visitor center there too, which is really cool, and it's very kid friendly as well. And then we hit our overnight town. So if we leave at say 8 o'clock in the morning, we're looking at 8, leave here at 8, leave here at 11, and then make a couple short quick stops, these are probably, again, 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes, and then you're there. And so we're probably there at, I'm going to say 9 o'clock at night, realistically. Could be earlier. It could be like 8 o'clock. You can do the math over here on the side. And so each day is like that. And then the next day, we'll do the Scotts Bluff Monument, which they also have a cool visitor center. And you can kind of drive up it too, which is neat. And do that in the morning and then hit the road. And it doesn't take very long to get from one place to another. So the kids aren't like, I mean, this stretch here and this stretch here is, the longest that they're going to have to go. And actually here, yeah. So there's all these little stops. And again, these are different type of things. We have like skeletons at this one. And then there's outdoor stuff too. And then this is a like old military encampment, which is really neat, an old fort. This is just out in the middle of nowhere. It's really cool. I'd love to camp there sometime. We stopped there and had lunch. There's nothing around for miles. I don't think there's a town for like 100 miles. And it's really neat. You can hike back through all these rocks and stuff. And then when you get to the hot springs, they have the Mammoth site, which is like kind of like this ash falls on steroids. There was except for instead of a bunch of ash falling down, there was a giant pit, and all these mammoths and everything fell in it. And you can walk into the place as they're digging them out, as the archaeologists are digging them out. So, or geologists, or whoever, the paleontologists, whoever the people that dig out bones are called. So, and then that's going to be our overnight town. And then the next day, we're going to go to Wind Cave. I don't have these in order. So Wind Cave would be, or maybe I do. I think I'd switch them. So if you want to switch them, you can go and say, okay, we're going to spend the night first. And then, oh no, I have them in the right order. Okay, so we're going to spend the night. We're going to do Wind Cave in the morning, National Park, and you get to go down into a cave. So again, you get like a totally different thing going on. There's also like buffalo and stuff. It's really cool. Prairie dogs. Then we go do the big memorials. Crazy Horse, Mount Rushmore. Two super iconic places. And then that night, we're going to spend the night, and the next 2 nights we're going to spend in Deadwood. So the next day would be a day trip over to Reptile Gardens. They have all these like cool reptiles. It's huge. The kids love it. I loved it. Super awesome. And then there's cool like free dinosaur park that you can kind of get a look of Rapid City. It'd be a neat place to have like a little picnic lunch. Again, free, totally free. And we weren't able to get this Hampton in because it was expensive. So instead of doing that, we'll head back here again for that night. So and then the next day, we're on our way home now, essentially. We're going to hit, again, another sort of, whenever you drive along interstate, if you've never done it before, Interstate 90, there's, 250 billboards for Wall Drug, and it's sort of this tourist trappy type of place. But if you go there if you go there a little early before Memorial Day weekend, it's not crazy busy. And it's a lot of fun to just stop in. I think we had ice cream when we were there. So and then you can go another national park, Badlands. You can do a cool drive-through. I think you can see the road right here. So, and if you wanted to route this, you can take this and pull it. I think maybe I have to put my waypoint in. We'll see if it adjusts here. Sometimes it does a better job than others. There we go. So you can drive through this road and get a pretty good feel. I mean, just as you're driving through, for what the Badlands are like. And we'll get our other national park there. And then we just got a long drive to our hotel here. And to break the day up, it's a short drive home from there. So when you get home, you can have time to put your stuff away and everything. You can have a little picnic at Palisades State Park. That's what we did. So that gives you an idea of what this trip would kind of entail. Now, one of the other things that I do is I try to give myself like 3 options of places to eat. Now, on this first night, it's probably going to be like a McDonald's type of a thing where we hit something on the road on the way to Sioux City and then we call it done. And then this day, during the day, is probably a picnic day. So there. And so the first night will probably be Scottsbluff, Nebraska. So what I like to do is I like to use TripAdvisor for this too. They do a really good job of restaurant sorting, especially for, just places that you're only going to be at night. I mean, you don't have time to like poke around and stuff. So we want restaurants. And so keeping in mind we could potentially arrive at as late as 9 o'clock. We want something that's going to be open. We want something that we can carry out, and we want something that is not expensive. So it's pretty easy on TripAdvisor to narrow all this stuff down. Go to Scottsbluff, restaurants, and I usually like to get a mix so I don't pick a certain kind, But what I do pick is dinner, because it's almost always dinner I'm looking for. And then cheap eats. And that's usually enough. And then I usually just skip over all the chain places. So, although Runza is kind of a Nebraska tradition, I'm not a giant fan of. I've only eaten there once, but so I don't know. Looks like we have a Mexican place here, Taco Town. Scotty's Drive-In. Now that looks like my type of place right there. So that looks actually pretty cool. So let's see what time they're open. Because we might even be able to drive in as we're going into town and get our food, and then take it to the hotel. So they're open till 9. So we know if we get there before 9, we're probably good for them. But if we don't get there before 9, we're probably not. So other than that, we're looking at like pizza or Chinese. And that's about it. So maybe a pizza place, but that would probably be my number one aim, and I'd probably aim. Okay, so most of the time I pick more than one place. So I at least have 2, even in a small place like Scottsbluff. So I'd look for a backup somewhere. Maybe this place looks pretty interesting. Maybe I could go in after we were in the hotel. If they're open past, say I probably want my second option to be open later just in case we're running behind, which happens fairly often. I'm not sure they have closing time though. So it just kind of depends. So I would poke around a little bit more and find one more place. If it's a bigger city, I usually have 3 options, just because some days you feel like something, or you just had Mexican the night before, so maybe you want something different. So, and that's it. So what I do with all the restaurant stuff is I print them all off and I put them in my binder. I put each um, section from Google Maps, each driving section in the binder, so I can see, where I'm going. And then I print off each attraction. I print off their main sheet with their information, because you want to know like closing times and things. I showed you how I checked the opening time for the ash balls. So toward the end of the day, um, I would check excuse me, the closing times. Um, a lot of places close at 5 o'clock, and if you're on a longer trip, and it's toward the end of your day, you might miss that closing time. So it's worth paying attention to if it's something that you really want to see. I thought I'd give everyone a quick peek at what our upcoming California trip looks like. So they only allow you 60 waypoints on Road Trippers, and I surpassed the 60 on this. And so this is basically exactly what I do. And for each day, I just start breaking it down little by little. Now this is a gigantic trip for most people and even for us, so it takes a little bit more planning. But I mean, you get used to it and you get a feel for it, and we're always flexible. So if something doesn't quite go right. So what I did have to do on this trip though is, and I'm not done yet. Since it's a fishing trip, also I set up another page because there weren't enough waypoints on this, because when you're fishing, you never know what the weather's going to be like. And I wanted several options for each day, at least 4 options, one of them inland from the coast in case it was really windy. So this is what I'm in the process of building right now. These are all potential fishing stops along the California coast. And since I aim for variety, each day I try to have some rock fishing or jetty fishing, some beach fishing, and some pier fishing. And then also an option that isn't like a freshwater option or a brackish water option that's not directly on the coast. So I still have a little more work to do on the freshwater stuff, but I'm pretty close to having, all these options down. And what I'll do now is I'll go to different forums, I'll look on YouTube, I'll just do all the research that I can to try to figure out, what's the best places for fish, what's the best variety, what's the safest for the family, what's the easiest to get to, all that stuff. So this is kind of a rough guide, and then as I have time, I just kind of hone it down and just do the best that I can. It's never going to be perfect, but I found that if you do this planning ahead of time, it makes a big difference because you don't have a lot of time. I mean, 10 days sounds like a lot of time to go from here, from Southern California to Northern California, but I mean, you could honestly stop like every 20 minutes or less, and see something or do something. So it just helps to have everything planned out as much as you can. So that's kind of an idea of how I do everything. And like I said, this is this will be the 3rd really big trip that we've gone on, and probably the 6th or 7th trip that we've gone on with the kids. So since they were 4 and 2, the pictures from the South Dakota trip they were only 4 and 2. It was one of the first trips that we took. So I hope that helps everybody out. If you have any questions, type them in the comments. I mean, just try to anticipate some of the things that to help guide people through. But I can't always think of everything. So let me know if you come up with anything, or if you have any questions. And I have a lot of experience doing this, so I can probably help. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you liked it, and happy travels.